Coming up in today's newscast, Israel passes the Jewish nation-state bill into law. Hamas apparently agrees to make peace with Fatah to form Palestinian unity, and one Israeli startup is about to give your smartphone the incredible sense of smell, and that's a good thing. In a groundbreaking development, the Knesset has officially passed the contentious Jewish nation-state bill into law. The new legislation effectively enshrines the country's Jewish identity into its de facto constitutional basic laws. And while opponents argue that this grossly endangers and potentially discriminates against minorities in the state, supporters hail this as a new era of Jewish freedom.
בדמוקרטיה הישראלית נמשיך להבטיח את זכויות הפרט והקבוצה. אלה ימשיכו להיות מובטחות. אבל זכויות יש גם לרוב, והרוב מכריע. הרוב המכריע בעם רוצה להבטיח את אופייה היהודי של מדינתנו לדורות.
The bill was passed in the late hours of the night following hours of very intense debate. Indeed, this has been one of the most fiercely parlayed pieces of legislation in recent memory. It was voted into law with a 62 to 55 majority, and the new law of the land formally declares the Hebrew calendar as the official timetable of the country and recognizes Jerusalem as the country's capital. But in a controversial move, the text revokes Arabic as one of the official languages of the country. Arabic is the first language of over 1/5 of the population of Israel. Additionally, another clause that seemingly endorses the idea of Jewish-only communities has been the focal point of fierce discussion. Proponents say that this merely grants religious freedom to Jews, but critics abroad and in the State of Israel have slammed the entire notion as dangerously discriminatory, especially towards minorities and non-Jewish citizens of the state. That's why leading Jewish groups in the United States have uniformly condemned the new Jewish state law altogether. According to them, quote, "The damage that will be done by this new nation-state law to the legitimacy of the Zionist vision and to the values of the State of Israel as a democratic and Jewish nation is enormous," end quote.
Our Declaration of Independence states that we are giving full equality to all the citizens of Israel. And this basic law is clearly not given the same level of equality and is actually designed to supersede the laws that we already had that the Supreme Court interpreted as including equality. This is very problematic. I think it would minimize the rights for minorities in Israel. Minorities in Israel might feel alienated, and probably rightly so, because the law is making Israel more Jewish, less democratic.
Here now with more on the debate over the newly passed nation-state bill is Knesset member with the Likud party Sharren Haskel and Deputy Knesset Speaker and Zionist Union Knesset member Hilik Bar. Thank you both very much for coming in today and coming back to the studio. So my first question for you, Sharren, is what are your thoughts on this bill? First of all.
Well, I'll say that unfortunately the Zionist Union didn't vote with us on this legislation. I think it's going to be reviewed negatively if we look on history, in the future of history. This bill is so important. I mean, if we want to have a future constitution, and the foundation legislation is our future constitution, this has to be inscribed in it. I mean, the definition of our culture, of our language, of our symbols, of the name of the State of Israel is a part that you cannot separate from, the overview of how you want to see the vision, the cultural vision of the State of Israel. Obviously, all Israeli citizens have completely equal rights, civilian rights. It doesn't speak about education. It doesn't speak about, property legislation or anything like that, but specifically about the culture. And we decided to found the only Jewish state in the world and to put that in our future constitution as well.
Was there nothing before that defined Israel?
So we had a Declaration of Independence, which is an official paper. But, for 70 years we've been speaking about a constitution. There's been a lot of disagreement, and Ben Gurion and other leadership couldn't come to a constitution. So we said throughout the years, slowly we'll build a constitution through the foundation laws. The national bill is something that cannot be separated. This is the spirit of the Declaration of Independence that we had. This is sort of the spirit of many legislation that describe the character of the State of Israel, including its symbols, but it actually put it in our future constitution. So it's extremely important to be legislated as well.
So, okay, so what are your responses to this?
Yeah, well, Sharon mentioned that the Zionist Union didn't vote for it. She didn't mention that Yesh Atid didn't vote. 55 members of Knesset, most of them proud Zionists, didn't vote. Benny Begin, the son of the late Menachem Begin, didn't vote for this bill. So should Likud thought that maybe there is a problem with this bill? We were dying to support this bill. Actually, we suggested alternative for this bill because we thought that if once and for all, we are legislating a nation-state bill for the State of Israel. It should be as wider as it can in regards support of this bill. But they insisted in Likud, unfortunately, to make it a one-side show, taking out of this bill two simple words that any democracy have nothing to do with, of course. Democratic and equality.
They took these words, those words are not in the
new
bill?
And we begged them. Put inside, Minister Yariv Levin insisted to take out the word equality and democratic, and we asked why. Tzipi Livni and us went to the coalition and told them, listen, this is a celebration. Not that we need approval from anyone that we are the nation state of the Jewish people, like we don't need approval from anyone that Jerusalem is our capital. We support both things, but we wanted to be a celebration of the entire Knesset, maybe beside the 13 Arab members of Knesset. But the moment they took out the word equality and democratic, we were out of the game. We tried to convince them, we failed, and this is why this is not a big celebration. And I hope that, as Sharon expected, it will be historically, it will be an important thing. I can predict that it may be the opposite, unfortunately.
So I would say what we've been saying along the entire way. The meaning of that segment in the future constitution is to describe the symbol and the cultural aspect of the State of Israel. We have another segment that speaks about human rights and respect for the rights and liberties and freedom. And this is where the segment about democracy, about liberties, about equality needs to be in. It has nothing to do with
equality and democracy doesn't belong in a basic law?
Well, it is. And we had a basic law speaking about Chok Vod Adam V'Cheruto, the liberty of human being and its freedom. So it's another segment in the future constitution. It is a foundation law as well. And
but we're not in the future, we're in the present.
Exactly.
Why did you insist to take out equality and democratic from this very important bill?
Okay.
Why?
So,
what was the problem?
So the foundation law, who speaks about liberties and about human rights, this is the bill that actually describes exactly what you're saying, including democratic values, equality, and all of that. This is what the High Supreme Court is constantly ruling about the democratic
so
principles.
Again, why to take it out of the bill?
Because, first of all, so it is in a bill, but it's in a different bill, which is a foundation law that has the exact same measure as the national law. The national law means to speak only about the character of our country. It speaks about our anthem, about language, about symbols. And so the idea of democracy, of equality, of freedom, this is being described.
Are not in the foundation of our party?
It is in a different foundation law, and not this particular foundation law.
You know that it should have been in. But I will tell you what's the problem. First, in this kind of a bill, equality and democratic values should be in this bill, regardless if it's in another bill. But I think that the right wing today, and I'm not talking necessarily about Sharon, in his policies leads us in a way to a binational state. Okay? And I think that this is a very coward thing to legislate this kind of a bill when you know that your policy leads us to be one day, I hope I'm wrong, a minority in our own state. And then you need this kind of bills that will protect you from the Arab majority that will be the case in future of Israel if Likud will and the Jewish home will continue to drag us to this binational state thing.
So,
and, yeah.
I'm sorry. So along those lines, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but along those lines then, with this bill in place, would you consider Israel to be more of a democratic state or a Jewish state now that this bill is passed?
So I think that this is the exact problem of what this bill, what happened with this bill from the side of the opposition. They turn it into a political matter instead of a national, cultural issue for the Jewish people in Israel. Unfortunately, this is where they were trying to take it, to the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict and all the issues that are surrounding this.
Does that have nothing to do with it?
Exactly. Look, obviously it's not detached completely, but I can also give you example. For example, Yoel Hassan, who's the whip of the opposition as well. He has signed in the past even not just this nationality bill, but also a more, even more grandiose sort of nationalistic bill. And so when some of Chilik's party already supported previous, more, let's call it, extreme bills in the past, why would they oppose such a more subtle bill like the one that we've actually passed yesterday? And this is the problem. They are turning it into a political problem that speaks about the Israeli-Palestinian issue and not about the cultural aspect of Israel.
With all respect, first you said that we cannot detach the Israeli-Palestinian. You know, when you have equality, when you have equal numbers between Israelis, Jews, and Arabs, between the river and the sea, we should think about the future. Okay, so it's not detached from it. However, we have no. I don't think that I have even one problem with what inside this bill. I have a serious problem with what outside of the bill, and this is why you are wrong. I can agree with most of the protocols and charters of this bill. But if I want to live in a Jewish and democratic state, the nation state of the Jewish people, which I'm committed to 100%, I cannot forget about equality and not about democratic, and I know that neither are you.
But I agree with you, absolutely. But this is why we've actually made sure that it is in one of the constitutional legislation which speak about human rights and liberties. Absolutely not. There's a specific segment for that in a constitution of every country.
So if it exists, why to not put it in the bill?
In a constitution of every country, you have different segments that speaks about different things. This is not the right segments to put it, but another segment, and I completely agree with you, and if you want to change it, you'll find a partner here as well.
Unfortunately, I do have to cut us off there. Thank you both so much for coming in, Knesset member Sharon Eskel and
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now, earlier this week, the Israeli government passed new legislation banning groups that are critical of the IDF from entering schools. This law is widely believed to have been specifically targeting the group Breaking the Silence, which publishes testimony from former soldiers who claimed they committed human rights violations in the occupied Palestinian territories. Well, they may not be allowed in schools anymore, but Breaking the Silence has just conducted a new student lecture, and it was held in the Knesset, no less.
Nearly a dozen high school students came from across the country to hear out Breaking the Silence's side of the story. According to them, the fact that the government sought to block the group's message only raised more questions for them about Israeli conduct in the West Bank. Right-wing members of the government have often denounced Breaking the Silence for publishing their allegations, which are sometimes made anonymously, especially when those stories are disputed by other witnesses. But Breaking the Silence says their aim is merely to shine a light on the part of the Israeli society where there is little transparency, and also to create a forum to at least discuss the complexities of IDF presence, protocol, and conduct in the occupied territories. In a protest to the new law, the group held their lecture in the offices of left-wing Knesset party Meretz. As 10th grader Rina Miriam Simanovsky put it, she came because, quote, everyone deserves to hear all sides. If you give a lecture on Jewish values in school, why not let students attend a lecture by breaking the silence, end quote. Regardless, with the new law now in place, any future meetings will likely proceed in rooms like these, and not in Israeli classrooms.
Now, we're hearing scattered reports that a Palestinian unity deal between Hamas and President Abbas's Fatah party may be back on the table. Egypt has apparently been overseeing discussions for such a deal, a role it's played for years now, and ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with more. So, Brett, obviously we've seen this deal come and go countless times in the past. What are the details this time around?
Well, one thing we do seem to know for sure is that Hamas officials have been in Cairo for talks with Egypt. Now, the big rumor is that Hamas leadership has quite possibly actually agreed to Egypt's terms for reconciliation with Fatah. Now, that wouldn't be the first time, of course, and as we've seen, even a deal signed on paper still has major obstacles, to overcome in practice.
All right, so how is this deal any different than from past deals? And is this one more likely or less likely to actually occur?
Well, for now, the ball looks to be in Fatah's court, so that remains to be seen. But the hardest part of enacting these deals has usually been just bureaucracy, and that literally just means the mechanics of how stuff works on the ground, specifically with handing over Gaza back to Fatah. So, for example, Hamas employs hundreds of workers to oversee administrative positions in the Strip, social servants with paychecks, salaries, everything like that. But for the transition to go smooth or at all, a deal has to address who stays in that job, how they get paid, and who pays them. And that's just a small example. But multiply that times 1,000 for things like maintaining security or borders, the military, infrastructure, things like that.
Right. So, okay, there's also the bigger picture of how the ship would run politically as well. After all, though Hamas is recognized almost worldwide as a terror organization, it's also technically a political party. Right. just how Fatah is. So dividing leadership is also key, is it not?
Sure, and I think we can expect all those things to be included in whatever this deal that Egypt has. Again, anything is easier on paper than in practice, but I know that Egypt will probably demand some kind of return to free elections for this deal to happen. That's not just in Egypt's interest, but also Israel's as well. But what's funny is that the biggest incentive in any reconciliation deal at all is probably President Donald Trump's foreign policy. Trump may have dropped his peace plan altogether in favor of focusing on rehabilitating the Gaza Strip. So if Hamas actually is pursuing a reconciliation for real, they'll basically be doing that to circumvent the United States. So obviously we'll just see what happens. But
We certainly will. All right. Thank you for the update, Brett.
Of course.
Billions of people on Earth are considered to either have a disability or some other mobility issue. You'd think that with numbers like these, more services would be accessible, but unfortunately that's not the case, especially when we're talking about travel. Well, Israeli company Travexy is changing that fact in an incredible new way, and here to tell us all about it is Paralympic swimmer and CEO of Travexy, Lioz Amar. Thank you so much for coming in. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So, okay, my first question, tell us about Travexy. What does it do? How's it work?
So, Travexy is a travel and booking platform that is specifically tailored for travelers with disabilities, general mobility issues, and the elderly population.
Okay.
Today, there aren't any systems or online travel agencies that cater people with disabilities or the elderly population. And we are changing that and doing it all easy and automatic.
So, okay, what was available up until now? Just like a checkbox, and then what did that afford you?
Exactly. You can go into some websites and they will give you an accessibility sign, and it will usually look like a wheelchair sign. And this wheelchair sign is the accessibility. Maybe you can find accommodation with a roll-in shower that I, as a disabled person, can roll into the shower, but that's it.
About all it gives you. So
it doesn't give the overall experience. We are a one-stop shop for people with disabilities or the elderly population, and we give the overall experience. Okay. So it's a tailor-made information for people with disabilities, not just people with physical disabilities. It could be blind people, it could be elderly, as we said, deaf people, and just giving the access to the world. And
all right, so yeah, I mean, I know that when you were representing Israel at the Beijing Olympics, what was your experience traveling, really?
Exactly. I started as a traveler, and as long as I traveled more, I got more upset at the way I've been treated. Sure. And I'm paying more than the usual traveler, between 2 to 4 times more than the usual traveler.
Seriously?
Yeah, and still we get, it's like nobody really makes...
Nobody's making an accommodation. You're paying for it, but you're not really getting served.
Exactly.
So, okay, so with Travexy, are you saving money as well?
Yeah, what we've done is we have good partners, Dakat Ishim. They are an accelerator, an OTA themselves, an online travel agency, and an accelerator. And we are connecting to them and getting some connection from them and the help for the other stuff that we do.
Sure.
And then we are building like one platform that will know and to cater.
Yeah, no, and that's it. I was scrolling around on it a little bit earlier. It's really smooth. It's very easy to kind of figure out and navigate and get everything that you need. It's already available then? It's already up and running?
No, it's going to be up and running in 5 months from now.
Okay.
We are now recruiting, we are campaigning at the Exit Valley, and we are recruiting money.
Very cool.
We already are at the close to the limit of what we're recruiting, and we're inviting the last people to come and join us and do this change that I guess we deserve it to have a...
Listen, it sounds like this has been a long time coming, that it's been necessary for a long, long time, and I'm glad that you're the one to answer the call and make this platform. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. And
all right, now out of all of our senses, I'd say that the sense of smell is maybe my favorite. A smell can instantly affect my mood, alert me to sudden changes, or even take me back to a time like almost nothing else. Well, one Israeli company is about to bestow the power of smell to your smartphone. And why would you ever want to do that, you ask? Take a look. Okay, we already know the simple pleasure of whiffing some flowers. But as it turns out, the power of smell is actually way deeper than we thought. Smells from your body can actually be used to detect certain illnesses,
And our pheromones can even attract romantic partners before we open up with that witty one-liner. Love at first glance, more like love at first sniff. Well, that's where the Israeli startup NanoScent enters the equation. Their new NanoScent sensor, which will cost you less than $100, gives your smartphone the ability to analyze air particles, which is pretty much what smelling is. The chip comes with 3 apps that work with the sensor to help you analyze your nutrition, health, and the quality of the air. And who's the brains behind the nose? Well, that would be the Israeli mastermind Hossam Haik, a professor at Israel's Technion Institute of Technology. Professor Haik helped develop Nanos, the robotic nose that can actually literally sniff out diseases and cancer by smelling your breath. But the new smartphone sensor would be the first time that consumers can actually use this kind of technology for themselves. And yes, just in case you were wondering, in addition to playing doctor, this sensor could also play matchmaker someday too. In fact, NanoScent co-founder Oren Gavrieli says that dating sites are already trying to integrate this tech into their websites. Whether you know it or not, a lot of our attraction to someone else actually comes from the subtle and not so subtle odors that other person emits. From invisible pheromones all the way to perfumes, deodorants, and shampoos. Imagine a first date where you just rub your phone against a stranger, wait between 10 and 60 seconds, and then get a relationship diagnosis. That would sure save a lot of time, but then again, where's the fun in that?
And now for this week's Top 5 with ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh.
There is nothing I love more than a good stand-up comedy show. Actually, let me change that. Anything really that falls in the comedy genre I like, and I'm definitely not the only one. Israelis love a good laugh, so that's why I'm here to give you guys my top 5 list of Jewish comedians. First on the list is the late Joan Rivers, often noted for her controversial comedic persona, which I found to be hilarious. Joan was one of the greats. She started her comedic career as a guest on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and later went on to host the rival show, The Late Show with Joan Rivers, which turned her into the first woman to host a late-night TV show. She was witty, sarcastic, willing to laugh at herself, but most importantly of all, said anything and everything that was on her mind, and I loved her for it. Second up is Adam Sandler. After becoming a cast member on the hit show Saturday Night Live, Sandler went on to star in plenty of Hollywood feature films. Best known for his comedic roles in movies like Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, The Waterboy, Big Daddy, and so many more, Sandler formed his own film production company, Happy Madison Productions. Oh, and who can forget Adam Sandler's famous The Hanukkah song? Now, that was good. Sarah Silverman is third on our list. She was a writer and performer on Saturday Night Live for 18 weeks until Sarah Silverman Project, in which she starred and produced in. She also won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards. Through her comedy, Silverman addresses social taboos and controversial topics with her own twist to it, and by twist, I mean she's absolutely hilarious. Fourth up has to be one of my favorites, Sacha Baron Cohen, the one and only Ali G, Borat, dictator, and most recently, political interviewer. Cohen's characters mostly interact with unsuspecting people, documentary style, most of which have no clue they're being set up for a comedic sketch. Most recently, Cohen has made headlines for, quote, fooling Sarah Palin and Joe Walsh. But if you ask me, I think he's doing exactly what he's meant to be, cracking people up and bringing topics not typically spoken about into the light. Do you, Sasha? Last but already, as you know, not least, Jonah Hill. He's best known for an absurd list of different comedy movies. Just to list a few: Superbad, Knocked Up, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, 21 Jump Street, and The Wolf of Wall Street. Let's put it this way, there is not a single movie that Jonah Hill has acted in or taken part in that hasn't made you literally pee in your pants from laughter. He's relatable, hilarious, and definitely one of the best. That's all for today's Top 5. Back to you.
IDC Summer Ulpan, open for everyone.
And now for a Hebrew word of the day, we just learned of a new technology that gives my smartphone the ability to sniff the stink in my vicinity. And that's why today's word is reach, or smell. Harcha, or smelling things, is one of the most beautiful things on the planet. And so I don't know about you, but I'm very ready to get my hands on this NanoScent sensor. Who knows what amazing rechot, or smells, I'll find with it. From the perfume of flowers to falafel shops in the street and even the stench of gasoline, I just cannot get enough reach. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight's sky will be clear with a low of 77 or 25 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect partly cloudy skies and warm weather with a high of 87 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.65 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for watching.